Do you want to move to Florida in 2025? Well, welcome to my State of the Union about moving to the Panhandle. Let's go. So today we're going to talk about basically moving to Florida right now in 2025. There's a lot of chatter out there about, just some misinformation, some things that are going on in the market, things that are going on in with housing, things like insurance and rates and stuff like that, but also just Florida in general. So today I wanted to take some time and basically just kind of like go over facts and then kind of go over like the stuff that's happening, newsworthy things, and then just basically go have a pros and cons at the end of it, because ultimately it's your decision. Like, I can tell you what I would do, but it's your decision. So I am here at Navarre Park on Highway 98. It is where the visitor center is. And as you can see behind me, I have the sound behind me. So hopefully you'll be able to hear, there's a lot of birds right now, but hopefully you'll be able to hear some of the waves crashing as I'm talking. But yeah, this park is pretty awesome. So you'll get to kind of see that in the background. So 2024 was a really crazy year in real estate. It was an election year. We had higher interest rates. We had insurance rates raising. We had a lot of inventory on the market all over the nation, really, not just in Navarre and the Panhandle area. We had the NAR lawsuit, which had a lot of people confused. There was higher inflation. And then on top of all of that, there was a lot of talk, at least in our area, about short-term rentals, whether they were going to be able to keep happening in more residential areas or not. And then don't forget, we're Florida, so weather's fun here. We had some hurricanes come through, and we just had 8 inches of snow. Now, yes, that was in 2025, but it happened, so I'm including that in there as well. So like I said, I just wanted to take some time to kind of like squash some fears that some people might have and give some facts, because some of the bad stuff is true. Like, there is some facts behind it, but just kind of want to take this video and kind of go over everything like one by one. So first, let's talk about the NAR lawsuit and then it being an election year, because those were both nationwide events that really weren't just Florida specific, but it did affect our market and whether it would be a good time for someone to purchase in 2025. So let's kind of talk about that. So first, the NAR lawsuit, that was, it was kind of going on throughout the whole year. We knew about it as agents anyway near the beginning of the year, but it didn't really take effect until pretty much summertime. And in my opinion, it really didn't affect buyers too much. It made things a little bit confusing for people that either one, didn't know as a buyer that was something that was happening, or two, the agent didn't know and made things possibly confusing for the buyers throughout the transaction. But I didn't see anybody, at least from my standpoints and my transactions, that it was stopping anyone from purchasing a house. So for me, it was kind of a non-issue. But with the election, so every election year, what we see happening is buyers and sellers get a little bit concerned around like August, September, October, where we start to see a little bit of a pause to see basically who's going to be elected, if it's in their favor or not for their own personal opinions. So we do usually see a little bit of a pause until the election, and then afterwards, if people are happy with it, then we see a little uptick. If people are not, then we might see a little bit of downtick. So for 2025 going forward, I've already noticed a small uptick in buyers and sellers putting their homes on the market in December and January. So I don't think it's going to have an issue for 2025 just yet. So in those two situations, I think they're kind of a neutral issue. So now let's talk about the market in general. So what I noticed in 2024 was homes were on the market a lot longer. So our days on market was higher. We have more inventory. People aren't really buying unless they have to. At least that was in 2024. So, for 2024, what I noticed a lot was that buyers got a little bit more negotiating powers. Sellers are still getting really close to their purchase price. The sold to list ratio was still in the 90s, if not higher. But, they were willing to give, a little bit more in closing cost concessions, or maybe, give and take a little bit more on repairs, things like that. So it was still really kind of give and take. I was kind of calling it like a neutral market, but because there was so much inventory, buyers had options. Now, interest rates. Now, that's something that is going to be, a topic of conversation for the next few years, because during COVID, we saw 2s and 3s and 4s. I personally hope we never see those again, just because it created such a market of people, selling their homes and getting a huge return back on it. But then our buyers are now in multiple offers. They're trying to outbid everybody. There's bidding wars happening. And now those COVID buyers are in homes that they either paid too much for or put too much of their cash down on, or three, they settled. And now they're in a house that they are scared to, sell because they have such low interest rate, but they hate their house. So for me, if you're in that situation, I mean, yes, interest rates are higher than what we've seen the past couple of years, but it's one of those things. We've got a little bit of negotiating power, like I said before. So wait till it comes down and refinance. Like, that's not the best answer, but what I'm telling my buyers is have the ability, so save a little bit of money and see if you can buy some points. That way you can buy that interest rate down a little bit. Obviously talk to your lender, because there's a break-even point of being in the home. If you know you're only going to be in the house for a couple of years, I would never recommend, I would almost never recommend buying points, because it's not worth it. That break-even point is probably at the 4, 5, 6 year mark. And if you're not in it that long, you just spent money to save money, but you're not saving money. Does that make sense? So that's my 2 cents. Are you thinking about moving to the Panhandle of Florida? Hi, I'm KRISTEN. I'm with the Emerald Group, and this is Life in Navarre. All of my information is going to be popping up here on the screen somewhere. Reach out to me, and I would love to help you either answer questions about our market, or whether it's the right time for you to purchase, or help you find the right house for you. There's a bird just walking along. Oops. Just listening to what I have to say. He's listening. He's going to buy in 2025. Okay, so now the next big hot topic button is insurance. Yes, in Florida, we saw huge increases, and I'm talking doubling, tripling of people's yearly premiums in insurance. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. One, we had a lot of companies, insurance companies, leave the state, which means they're not writing policies for Florida, which means there's fewer companies writing, so they can, it's supply and demand. They can raise their prices because there's only a few options. Two, we had a lot of roof fraud, which made prices go up, which now there's a rule where if it's a new policy, your roof has to be 15 years or younger. And then water heaters. So water heaters is actually the #1 claim in Florida for insurance, not hurricanes. And it's just because you're dumping 60 gallons of water in your home. So, mold, the drywall, all that stuff that now needs to be repaired. So now, if it's a new policy, your water heater has to be 12 years or younger. So there's a lot of reasons why insurance rates have gone up. But to put things into perspective, so our first house here, over the last 8 years, we had a 2,600 square foot home. It was about 23 years old. We were only paying $1,200 a month, or $1,200 a year in insurance. It did have a new roof. The water heater, I don't think it was, I'm trying to remember, maybe like 10, 12 years old. We did replace it, but that was after the fact. So we were only paying $1,200 a year in insurance. Now, that's cheap as heck. Fast forward to today, our home is only about 3 or 4 years old. So everything in it is only 3 or 4 years old. We do have a pool. It's 2,500 square feet, and we pay close to $3,000 a year. Now, in the grand scheme of things, yes, that was more than double for kind of the same home, if not better, as far as age-wise. But again, we were doing so good for so long as far as interest premiums and things like that. So it was bound to happen. It just happened all at once. Instead of little, sneak ups, it just happened all at once. So I hear a lot from other people around the US moving here that their rates are generally about the same, insurance rates. Now, if you live in a little country town, like in the middle of nowhere where there's not a lot of, natural disasters, things like that, then yeah, your insurance is not going to be super high. But for people around like more metropolitan areas, or where there's earthquakes and tornadoes and things, your insurance is kind of going to be around the same as ours. So I don't think it's all that much. So when you're hearing all of the different talks and stuff of insurance rates being super, super high and premiums, yes, they've doubled, tripled, but they're kind of at normal now. Like, we were so low for so long that it was due. So in the media you're hearing, or in people talking and stuff like that, they're just talking about how much it has gone up, and it has, but we're at normal rates now. So kind of take that for what it is. But like I said, yes, it's gone up, but it's at normal rates. So drop a comment down below what you're paying for insurance, because I'd love to see, like, kind of compare rates throughout the US. how old is your house, how big is your house, and what state are you in? And we can kind of see if we're all kind of paying about the same rates. All right, so let's talk short-term rentals. I know in the bigger metropolitan areas, this is not a new topic for you guys, but here over the last really year or two, we've seen a lot more talk about areas not allowing short-term rentals. Our beach that you see back here, those are never going to go away. We're always going to have short-term rentals there. But what I'm noticing in Navarre, Gulf Breeze, Fort Walton, even Destin, like more residential areas, if it's an HOA, a lot of the HOAs are saying, no, we're only allowing, 30-month minimums or 6-month minimums or something like that. And you're not allowed to basically Airbnb or VRBO your home. Navarre is not incorporated, so we're not a city. So there's no governing body of Navarre saying, no, Navarre, you cannot have, short-term rentals. So you still can here. It would be a county level thing. And as a county, they're not going to, I don't think, my opinion, they probably shouldn't make a big rule just over the county. But, I'm seeing, like I said, Holly by the Sea, they have rental restrictions. There's a lot of the smaller, one street type HOAs that are not allowing it. And it's pros and cons, right? So it stinks because you're not bringing in tourist dollars, but the people that are around you that live in those homes full time, it's a blessing because now you don't have to worry about, is there a bachelor party happening next door? Is it a family reunion and they're up all night during the middle of the week? That kind of stuff. So it's pros and cons, but that is something to think about if you're thinking about purchasing a home down here for that purpose. You just have to really make sure that if there's an HOA, look at the meeting notes of the minutes to see if there is any talk about taking it out. And then just do your due diligence. And if there is an HOA, read through those to see if there's already a rule that you can or cannot have one. So finally, let's talk about the weather. Hurricanes. It is Florida. We will always have hurricanes. Thankfully, we have not had one hit us directly here in Navarre, or really the Panhandle in general, in a while. We had Sally. That was more of a wind and rain event, really. It was almost a Category 3, or it was a low-end Category 3. But really, the big thing we saw from that was just, downed fences, roofs that were already at the age limit and at the end of their life. We saw some damage to those and some downed trees, but it was really just because the ground was so wet that they just fell over. So we're always going to have hurricanes. The snow, yes, we had snow. It does freeze here, actually. We are far enough north that it will freeze here from time to time. In the last 7 years, we've had the snow just last month, and then we've had 2 freezes that I can remember. But they last a day and it's gone. And it's not even the day, it's usually at night. But in the grand scheme of things, we have weather. If you go, there's not very many places where you don't have some kind of, Mother Nature event, like tornadoes, earthquakes, or hurricanes, all that stuff. So for me, I've lived in California. I grew up in the Midwest. So I've gone through earthquakes, I've gone through tornadoes. I would actually, not that I would want any of those things, but I would much rather have to deal with a hurricane because you get so much notice. We know it's in the Gulf coming. We know it's on the coast of Africa before it comes through. So, we've got weeks notice to prepare and to keep watch on it. Whereas earthquakes, there's no notice. I was at work in a 10-story building and all of a sudden I got nauseous because I just felt like it was swaying like this. It was the freakiest thing. I'm looking out the windows and the buildings are going like this, and it was so stinking weird. And another time I was sitting at home and I just felt like our house just got shook and all of the pictures were tilted like that. It was the weirdest thing. And obviously I got away really, really easily because those were not bad earthquakes. But obviously earthquakes can cause some serious damage and, people can die from them, obviously. So I'd rather have something, and even tornadoes, you get if it's going to be a day where it's going to be bad storms, they know to just watch out for them, but they happen within seconds and they're already formed, the twister's formed and you have seconds to get to cover, to take cover, whatever. So for me, and if those are my 3 options, I'd much rather have to deal with a hurricane. Obviously, hurricanes can cause a ton of damage because it's not just a big, fat, nasty hurricane every single time. It can be like a Sally where it's a lot of water. It can be like a Harvey where it's a lot of water. So, they're all bad. But if I had to pick one, for me personally, I would rather pick a hurricane just because we know it's coming and we can plan for it. So that's kind of all of the newsworthy events, market stuff, weather stuff that happened 2024 and then a little bit in the beginning of 2025 because I cheated because of the snow. But when I tell people that are trying to make a decision, like use what you know that happened recently. And then if you still can't make a good choice for you, make a pros and cons list. So that's what we're going to do right now. All right. So for me, and I'm going to kind of, obviously we don't have an ability to kind of go back and forth with each other. So I'm just going to make my pros and cons, and then you guys can either use them or tweak it or whatever. For me, for cons, interest rates are higher. So be prepared to have to come to the table with a little bit of cash to buy down your points if you're going to stay here long enough for it to make sense. If not, just be prepared to either try to negotiate some concessions for the seller to pay for that. But just be prepared for a higher interest rate for the next, 6 months to a year. So that to me is a con, because obviously you're mortgaging your home at that higher rate. Number two is going to be that insurance is a little bit higher than it has been in the past. So if you've been dreaming about moving to Florida for the last 5 years and your budget included numbers from 3 and 4 and 5 years ago, then yeah, you're going to have to adjust that a little bit to numbers that are right now. Although I will say, and I forgot to mention this earlier, I have a couple of insurance friends, and they were telling me that over the next 6 months to a year, we should start to see those numbers tick down a little bit as more companies come back into the market. So kind of keep that in your back pocket, in the back of your mind, to kind of do that. But for now, it is a con, because it is higher than what it used to be. I'm going to cheat and make a neutral column, because there's a couple things for me that it doesn't make a difference either way. So for one, weather. For me, it's a pro and a con. I actually hate heat. I hate the humidity because it does stuff like this to my hair. I don't want to have to deal with a hurricane, but if I had to choose between hurricane, tornado, earthquake, I'll take a hurricane over the other two. So again, neutral. And as much as I hate the humidity, I like the fact that we don't have to deal with, freezing temperatures all the time. I miss fall, I miss winter, but I would much rather have, being able to wear flip-flops 90% of the year than having to deal with parkas and snow boots and things like that. For me, also, short-term rentals are a neutral, because you can still, if you're looking for that single-family detached home at the $300,000-$400,000 price point and to use it as a short-term rental, sure, you might have limited options going forward, but you've got all kinds of condos sitting right back here that are well within that price point. You could even come down off that price point to make up for the HOA dues and still have really good rental rates coming back. School's starting to let out, so we've got a bunch of kiddos around, which is awesome, because this is one reason I'm going to peek over here before I give you my pros and show you guys this park. So again, we are at the foot of the bridge. You've got this massive fenced park. If you check out my video that I did with my kiddos, and we came over here and kind of showed you guys, this area up here is the water park, and then there's the dry area here under the awnings, so it's pretty cool. And then you've got all this seating down here by the beach, picnics and stuff. So all right, let's get to the pros. So for me, I can go to the beach whenever I want to. Like I said, I've lived in California, I've lived in Virginia, I've lived in the Midwest, where we do have some beaches because of the lakes. And I would take this beach every single day, because the water is warmer than East Coast and West Coast beaches, at least where I lived. So I can come down here whenever I want to. I'm within pretty much anywhere in Navarre. You're within 15-20 minutes of a drive, even including driving over the bridge to a beach access point. Who can say that? Like, people in Kansas can't say that. No offense to Kansas, but this is awesome. For me, this is a huge pro. For the Panhandle specifically, I love that even though they are not small towns. There are 30,000, people. There's 30,000 people in Navarre. It still feels really small. It feels like that hometown. I run into people all the time, and I know I'm a real estate agent, so I know a lot of people, but I run into people all the time when I'm at the Walmart, when I'm at, the grocery store, when I'm whatever. And that's cool to me. Like you kind of have there's always people that kind of have eyes on my kids too, which is always nice. But I like that it's still kind of that small town feel, but there's still stuff here, shopping, restaurants, that kind of stuff. And then again, for Navarre specifically, we're still seeing growth. So this park that I'm at, all of this right here, it's had a huge facelift over the last year. There used to be a butterfly house here, which it is sad that that's gone, but they just moved it to Milton, so it's still in the county. But now we have this huge, awesome park. The water park that was here was very sad, and now it's pretty awesome and huge. So more kids can enjoy it. More, they can enjoy the just playing in general. We're seeing more restaurants. We've got Chipotle now. We've got Buffalo Wild Wings. We have a Starbucks. We have an Aldi's. Our Winn-Dixie got a huge facelift as well. And like, we're just seeing more stuff coming in, which is really cool, but because it still feels small, but we're getting those big name brands. We're also getting a brand new high school, which is much needed. But it's one of those things where like people feel like Navarre is old and tired. But again, I just feel like, it's one of those things where we are small and there's not much more room to grow, but the county and people that be are noticing that we do need a little bit of a facelift, and they're doing it. So all that to say, our pros and cons, our neutrals, because I cheated. I personally would buy in 2025, not because I'm a real estate agent, but I would buy in Florida all day long. I know a lot of you know my story, some of you don't, but my husband and I chose Florida to retire and to live out, at least till our kids are done in high school, because we get to see this all day long. And this is pretty awesome. So until next time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you don't miss another video, and I'll see you later.